Part 1, The Forgotten Maid. Lila had mastered the art of invisibility. At just 21, she had spent years as a maid in the Whitmore Mansion, a sprawling estate in upstate New York owned by one of the wealthiest families in the region. Despite its grandeur, the house was a prison for her, filled with cold glares and sharp reprimands. Lila. Mrs. Whitmore's voice rang out from the drawing room. This tea is lukewarm. Do it again, and this time, try not to dawdle. Yes, ma'am, Lila murmured, her eyes cast downward as she hurried back to the kitchen. She had no family to turn to, no savings to her name. Her only possession of sentimental value was a gold locket that had belonged to her late mother. The locket bore an engraving on the back, R.A., Forever Summer. Lila often wondered about its meaning, but her mother's death when she was just a baby left her with no answers. That evening, the Whitmores hosted an opulent dinner party. Among the distinguished guests was Rupert Ashbourne, a British billionaire visiting on a business trip. Recently widowed, Rupert carried an air of subdued grief. 3 years earlier, he had lost his wife and only daughter in a tragic car accident. With no children and no direct heirs, Rupert's life felt hollow despite his vast fortune. As the night progressed, Rupert found himself distracted. A young maid clearing plates caught his eye. Her face, there was something achingly familiar about her. He couldn't place it, but the feeling gnawed at him. Toward the end of the evening, as Lila moved to refill Rupert's glass, the locket she wore slipped out of her pocket and clinked onto the floor. Rupert froze, his gaze fixed on the small piece of jewelry. "Excuse me," he said, leaning forward. "That locket, may I see it?" Startled, Lila picked up the locket, her fingers trembling. It belonged to my mother," she stammered. Rupert extended his hand. Reluctantly, she passed it to him. As he turned it over, his breath caught. The engraving was unmistakable, R.A., Forever Summer. "Where did your mother get this?" Rupert asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," Lila admitted. "She died when I was a baby. It's all I have of hers." Rupert's hands trembled. Memories of a brief summer romance 21 years ago flooded back, a woman named Elizabeth, a fleeting but profound connection while on holiday in the U.S., and a locket he had given her before they parted ways. "Excuse me," Rupert said abruptly, handing the locket back and rising from his seat. "I need some air." He retreated to the veranda, his heart pounding. Could it be? Could this young woman be the child he had never known he had? The thought was too overwhelming to process. Inside, Lila tucked the locket back into her pocket, puzzled by Rupert's reaction. She didn't know it yet, but her life was about to change forever. Like and leave a comment if you want to hear part 2.